I want to take a few minutes and do something I've been thinking about for a long time. People continue to ask me, a lot of people don't want to listen to my videos because I don't use the King James Version. I get slammed in comments for not using the King James Version. I want to tell you exactly why I typically don't use the King James Version. Uh, King James of England commissioned someone to translate the Bible. In 1611, it was finished, okay, the translation of the Bible. The limited scholars worked on it. They had one or two manuscripts to work from of Hebrew and one or two from Greek. They did not even have the entire Greek New Testament. The original Bible, Old Testament written in Hebrew, New Testament was written in Greek. The people who translated the King James did not even have the entire Greek New Testament. What they did, they took some English transcripts, translated them into Greek, and then translated those back into English. They didn't even have manuscripts. Today, we have 5,800 manuscripts. Manuscripts are handwritten copies of copies that are ancient. We have 5,800 manuscripts of the New Testament, either in part or whole. Some of them are complete, the entire New Testament. They didn't have anything like that then. Today we've studied the New Testament documents, and they have developed what is called the Nestle-Aland Greek text. And the current translations are translated from that. King James was done in 1611, okay? The English language has changed since then. They did not have complete manuscripts to translate from. They made lots of mistakes in their translations. In short, because of the changes in the English language and because of the lack of, one, scholarship, two, texts that were accurate to work from, the King James Version is probably, it is not probably, it is without question, the least accurate translation today. So people will take the King James and they'll compare it to a new translation and note that the new translation is different, assuming that the King James is the original. King James is not the original. The original is the Greek and the Hebrew. Hebrew in the Old Testament, Greek in the New. So there's massive confusion about that, massive misinformation. That's something I studied that in Bible college, which a long time ago. I graduated in 1976, and I've kept up with it since. There is no perfect translation. To really understand what the Greek and the Hebrew say, you have to study Greek and Hebrew. I have a background in Greek, not Hebrew. So I depend on translations and what people who do have a background in Hebrew say about the Old Testament. But I've studied it. Okay, that doesn't mean I know everything. Nobody knows everything. You can spend your whole life studying one little book in the New Testament and learn new stuff every time. Why? Because it's the Word of God. And it's living and active and sharper than a two-edged sword. But translations need to be somewhat accurate. One of the things that we have today that we did not have, certainly in the time of King James, I think it was 1947, they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. They have entire copies of the Old Testament in Hebrew and commentaries by scholars they discovered in a cave in Qumran. They didn't have that when they did the Old Testament in King James in 1611. And they discovered all kinds of New Testament manuscripts, thousands of them since then, a lot of them in the Vatican, okay, beneath the Vatican. So we have so much more evidence today, and we know what the originals were. They did not when they translated King James. So there's a lot of good translations. The most accurate translation ever done, believe it or not, was done in 1901. It was called the American Standard Version. I used to have a copy of that. I've moved around a bunch, and I've misplaced it somewhere. The second most accurate translation ever done, and these are a little bit hard to read because they're very specific to the Greek language, Greek and Hebrew language. New American Standard Bible, and I used that for many years, and that was the one I used. What I typically use now is New International Version, NIV. Good translation, came out in the 70s and 80s. And it's no translation is perfect. NIV is good. Another really good one done in the early 2000s, right around the turn of that century, English Standard Version. That's a really good translation. I used to, early in my adventures in Bible study and so forth, in the early 70s, I used Revised Standard Version. Pretty good on New Testament, not as good in Old Testament. There are paraphrases, like the Living Bible. Paraphrase means that you take a phrase that is what they would call a dynamic equivalent and put it in the place of the actual translation. I don't like paraphrases because they're not accurate. But still, the most inaccurate translation is the King James, okay? Again, there's massive confusion about that in the English speaking world. What the King James did is it opened up Bible study, and this is a great blessing to the entire world, opened up Bible study to the average dude, the average guy. And it was not there before. So, summary, I don't use the King James almost at all because it's just not accurate, not as accurate as others. There's great accuracy in some of the other translations. I find that New International Version is accurate. A lot of the study tools today are keyed to the New International Version, so I typically use that. Not always. Every now and then I go back to New American Standard on certain texts because it's very accurate. So I would stay away from paraphrases. If I needed just a good study Bible to start studying, I'll tell you what I'd go out and do. I'd get a New International Version study Bible. And you would do pretty well getting into the biblical text with the NIV study Bible. It's a great place to start. So, why don't I use the King James Version? It's not accurate. They didn't have access to the manuscripts, to the Greek text, the Hebrew text like we do today. And the scholarship was not like it is today. We have much better scholarship, okay? So there's a lot of myths and misinformation about the King James. The King James is less accurate than these newer translations. Newer translations can be trusted. I know that because I've studied the background of all that stuff. So why do I use the NIV? It's accurate, it's readable, and a bunch of other study tools are linked to that. I hope you'll take this stuff to heart. And number one, read the Bible. Okay, if you absolutely have to read the King James, read the King James. But I would encourage you to look at NIV or ESV, or if you want to be a little bit more laborious about the English language, New American Standard Bible. Hope you be blessed, and I hope this is helpful to you, and I hope you listen and take it to heart, because believe me, this is something I'm pretty familiar with. Bless you. I hope you will subscribe to my channel, hit the bell, give me thumbs up, make comments, help other people with it.